The first 3 hours after the United States was struck with nuclear weapons changed the world forever. Sirens, emergency broadcasts, and broken communication lines signaled that the unthinkable had finally happened. Now, as we enter the fourth hour, the world stands on the edge of total collapse. NATO moves from shock to retaliation. Diplomats fall silent. Generals take control. Launch crews receive sealed orders. This is the moment when decisions are made that will shape the fate of billions. This is hours 3 through 6 after the U.S. is hit. And this is the story of the counterstrike. The clock strikes hour 3. The third hour begins with a terrifying realization. The United States government cannot yet confirm the scale of the attacks, nor how many more may be inbound. The National Command Authority has relocated to hardened bunkers. NATO's secure hotline, frozen during the first explosions, finally stabilizes. In Brussels, at NATO headquarters, red lights flash above the situation map. Analysts begin to track radiation plumes drifting east over American cities. Across Europe, the air raid sirens are silent for now, but everyone in the command room knows that could change in minutes. And then, the announcement arrives. Article 5 is active. NATO is officially at war. The first NATO war game begins. For decades, NATO has trained for this moment, the moment when a nuclear strike on a member state triggers the full alliance response. But no simulation, no war game, no theory ever fully prepares leaders for the real thing. NATO begins executing a response plan known as Thunder Sky, the operational blueprint for a large-scale retaliatory strike after a nuclear attack on a member state. It includes activation of Strategic Air Command nuclear-certified aircraft, preparing for airborne alert dispersal of stealth bombers, naval missile forces receiving strike packages, satellite surveillance prioritizing Russia's missile fields, emergency reinforcement of Eastern Europe. For the first time in history, NATO doesn't just prepare for war. NATO is at war. The U.S. struggles for breath. Inside the United States, conditions deteriorate rapidly. Electric grids fracture, hospitals overflow, radiation alarms blare throughout the Midwest. Millions are still trying to flee impact zones, but highways are jammed or destroyed. The president, now secured deep underground, authorizes full strategic coordination with NATO. His voice is steady, but every commander listening can hear the exhaustion behind it. Do whatever is necessary, he says. Strike back. Hour 4 begins. As the fourth hour begins, NATO leaders convene in a sealed, windowless command suite. The coffee cups vibrate with tension. Heads of state appear on secure screens, some in bunkers, others hastily evacuated from their capitals. An eerie calm settles over the room. One general summarizes the situation. Europe is still intact. The U.S. is wounded but standing. Russia has not yet launched a second wave, but our satellites show rapid activity at their missile fields. The implication is clear. This could escalate far beyond a counterstrike. This could become a global nuclear exchange. And so NATO asks a single question. Do we respond with conventional firepower, or do we initiate a limited nuclear counterstrike? The debate begins. The nuclear debate. Inside the NATO bunker, leaders argue with controlled desperation. The United Kingdom argues for an immediate nuclear response. Britain's Prime Minister, pale and trembling, says, "Failure to retaliate immediately will be seen as weakness. If we hesitate, Russia will strike again." France takes a more cautious stance. Its president warns, "If NATO launches nuclear weapons now, we trigger full-scale thermonuclear war." Germany, still haunted by its history, pushes for restraint. "Conventional strikes first," Berlin insists. "Escalate only if Russia escalates again." But all eyes turn toward the United States, or rather, the U.S. representative to NATO, speaking on behalf of a government buried under rubble and crisis. His message is chillingly simple. If Russia believed they could strike the United States and escape retaliation, They were gravely mistaken. The room falls silent. The counterstrike is approved. NATO begins mobilization. As Hour 4 continues, NATO's military machinery roars to life across an entire continent. Air bases across Europe, F-35s, Eurofighters, and F-16 streak into the sky, heading to pre-assigned combat air patrol zones. Stealth bombers take off from British and Italian air bases under the cover of darkness, flying with transponder silence. Their target packages are sealed. Submarines from the UK, France, and the US begin surfacing briefly to receive encrypted launch orders. Aegis destroyers move into strike positions in the Norwegian Sea, Baltic Sea, and Mediterranean, each vessel capable of launching dozens of precision-guided missiles. NATO Cyber Command launches counterattacks aimed at Russian government networks and military infrastructure, attempting to blind Russian targeting systems. Across Europe, millions of civilians begin rushing into shelters as news networks broadcast warnings. This is not a drill. Russia prepares for round 2. Russian leadership, having already struck the United States, must now decide, do we wait for NATO's retaliation, or do we strike Europe first? Inside the Kremlin's hardened command facility, red phone lines ring non-stop. Russian commanders watch NATO aircraft dispersing across radar screens. Satellite imagery shows NATO ballistic missile submarines beginning evasive maneuvers. Russian air defenses switch to full wartime mode. Across Siberia, dozens of mobile ICBM launchers depart hidden bases, disappearing into forests under cover of winter storms. The Russian president slams his fist onto his war table. Prepare for NATO retaliation and prepare for the second wave. Hour 5. The sea becomes the front line. The 5th hour marks a dramatic shift in the conflict. The North Atlantic, once peaceful, becomes the most dangerous place on Earth. NATO submarine hunters scramble. Russian submarines attempt to slip past detection lines. American Ohio-class submarines, previously silent, begin closing in on Russian naval bases. Each submarine carries enough firepower to erase an entire country. Yet, they remain undetected beneath the waves. Meanwhile, the UK's Vanguard-class sub receives a coded flash message: Thunder level, shift to target package C. This is the confirmation that the UK must prepare its nuclear missiles for potential launch. France follows minutes later. NATO's nuclear triad is now fully armed. Europe braces for impact. Across Europe, panic spreads. Cities open their Cold War shelters for the first time in generations. Lines stretch for blocks. People clutch emergency radios and bottled water. In Warsaw, Berlin, Paris, and London, air raid sirens echo through ancient streets. Governments urge citizens to stay calm, but everyone knows what may be coming. The fear is not hypothetical. If Russia launches a second strike, Europe is the next target. Families call each other with trembling voices. Church bells ring. Traffic jams clog every exit route from major cities. This is what the brink of global destruction looks like. And NATO's target packages. Activated inside NATO's command bunker, a stern-faced general stands before a large digital board showing Russia's missile fields, air bases, and naval installations. He begins reading the list of targets assigned for the counterstrike. Strategic bomber bases, ballistic missile submarine ports, ICBM silos, command and control bunkers, radar installations, air defense hubs, logistics centers. The plan is not to destroy Russia entirely. The plan is to cripple its ability to launch more nuclear weapons. This is designed as a limited strategic counterstrike, coercive, calculated, and devastating. Stealth bombers approach the edge of Russian radar range. Cruise missiles aboard NATO vessels receive final coordinates. The countdown begins. The 6th hour begins. Hour 6 arrives with an eerie tension. NATO aircraft, having reached their attack points, await the final authorization code. Submarines lie silent beneath pitch-black waters. Missile crews in underground bunkers stand by with keys in hand. The world holds its breath. Then, a secure communication enters NATO headquarters. Confirmation from the U.S. Command Authority, NATO Counterstrike is authorized. A final code is transmitted, a simple, chilling phrase, execute Thunder Sky. NATO strikes back. Dozens of NATO cruise missiles erupt from warships in the Mediterranean, Baltic Sea, and North Atlantic. They streak across the sky like fiery comets. Stealth bombers release precision-guided ordnance, slipping away before Russian radar can react. Submarines launch their first wave of missile strikes from deep underwater. The night sky over Europe and western Russia glows faintly with the trails of incoming weapons. Russian air defenses spring to life. Sirens blare across western Russia. Explosions rock military bases near the borders. Shock waves ripple across command bunkers. NATO has struck. The world has crossed the point of no return. Hours 3 through 6 mark the moment when NATO shifts from fear to fury, from shock to retaliation. The conflict is no longer about survival. It is about dominance and the desperate hope that someone, somewhere, will stop before the world is destroyed. But as the 6th hour ends, the question grows louder. Will Russia answer NATO's counterstrike with an even larger wave? Or is this the final warning before global annihilation? The next hours will decide the fate of civilization.